Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Khodorkovsky, I want to confess I do share most of your assessment. And I want to thank you very much for coming here. Two questions. First, on Crimea, which is unanswered yet. Now Russia is deploying huge quantity of offensive and defensive materials, missiles, short and mid-range, fighter jets, among the moderns of the Russian Air Forces, plus Iskander 300, having some mid-range capabilities of carrying nukes. What is your assessment? Why Russia is deploying such a quantity of military equipment which completely disbalance the situation in the Black Sea? And number two, what is the purpose behind Russia is financing political parties in many EU member states? Can we consider that Russia is doing now what the former Nazi regime done before with the fifth column? Or how we can interpret this systematic and systemic action taken by Russia? Thank you.
At the same time, everyone was was already there. No, I've seen that. Please make it clearly next time. But this time, Mr. Khodorkovsky has the floor. He had already to go. We have 4 o'clock. Cheers, Marcel.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for all these questions. We could sit here well into the evening, I understand, on the basis of all the questions, but I won't test your patience so long. First of all, I'd like to thank most sincerely all of those who, over all these years, have supported me and my colleagues who fell into the repressive mechanism of the Russian judicial system. I am most grateful to you sincerely, and I assure you that your support meant and still means a great deal for people who are behind bars in Russia, and I think there'll be quite a few of them still for a while. So, there was a question about human rights defenders, and that's a well-placed question. Putin is quite traditional in trying to stamp out the opposition, human rights defenders, and with Western Europe, and he tries to divide them and fight against them. Any of those that try and cooperate with him, he tolerates and he cultivates, but those who are diametrically opposed to him, he will persecute. And where this is successful, he has won. Where people have stood up for themselves and showed unity, despite the fact that they might have had things to gain through individual cooperation, there Putin has had to give ground. And this relates to the question of the unity of Europe. It is to do with the opposition's behavior, and that applies to the conduct of human rights defenders. It won't be easier for him, and it won't be easy for us or for you in your profession. And you just have to live with that. What can we do to help the human rights movement? Well, we're doing everything we can, but the opportunities open to us are restricted, as you can imagine. Sanctions. The sanctions which have been announced were announced as sanctions against Russia. I know that, in fact, in the resolution, something else is written, but the propaganda machine of the Kremlin won the day on that. And there was no opposition, no counterparty EU propaganda machine to gainsay them. The sanctions are against Russia, and it is a great shame that they have led to a consolidation of public opinion around the regime. Could we do anything about that now? Well, we can and we must. If you don't just stick to words and go to deeds, and you understand that there is a difference between Putin and Russia, the Russian people, then it is quite feasible to find a way where the interests of the Russian people and the interests of the Putin regime are diametrically opposed. Let me give you an example. Theft from the budget and corruption, which indeed, if you look at it, is what triggered the whole Ukrainian thing. It's a very simple answer. What started Ukraine? The rating of Putin started to plunge. Now why? Because the corrupt activity of those around Putin was something that society just got tired of. They were fed up with all this corruption. They were fed up with seeing people stealing from the state coffers. And in order to do something about his falling ratings, that's why they started the Ukrainian thing, this reckless invasion of Ukraine. And you need to get the people to realize the extent to which the people around Putin have wealth in the West, because their money is here in the West. Yes, now they're trying to transfer it to Asia to some extent, but not all of them have started to do that. So if the sanctions were demonstrated to be moral sanctions, sanctions against the people who are stealing from Russia and concealing that theft with military operations in Ukraine, if you can show who these people are, where their villas are, in Italy, in Germany, and I'm sure you all know exactly, well, it is known exactly where they are, these villas, why don't you do this? I don't know. I have no answer to that. Why don't you show the pictures? Well, I do have an answer, but it's not a pleasant one. And linked to this is the question of lustration, de-Putinization. Russia is a huge country. And the total lustration which was carried out, for example, in Georgia, wouldn't be possible in Russia. A total clear out of the previous regime. But without doubt, there are those at various levels in the hierarchy of power who wouldn't be able to keep their posts in a new Russia. And I agree that there was a serious mistake made when, after the fall of the Soviet Union, even at a moral level, there was no condemnation of the people who were directly involved and participated in the crimes which were perpetrated then. We cannot repeat that mistake. So how many people are we talking about? Well, in my speeches in Russia, I have said that we're talking about roughly 10% of the current political and administrative body. So this is a few tens of thousands of people. And if you compare this with the sanctions list from Europe, it's 113 people. And although they are scared about this, their fear is kind of virtual. It's a bit distant.